How the chicken conquered the world. The epic starts 10,000 years prior in an Asian wilderness and finishes today in kitchens everywhere on the world. The chickens that saved Western civilization were found, as per legend, by the side of a street in Greece in the principal decade of the 5th century BC. The Athenian general Themistocles, on his approach to defy the attacking Persian powers, halted to watch two cockerels battling and gathered his soldiers, saying, "See, these don't battle for their family divine beings, for the landmarks of their predecessors, for wonder, for freedom or the security of their youngsters, yet simply because one won't offer root to the next." The story doesn't depict what befell the failure, nor clarify why the troopers discovered this showcase of instinctual hostility rousing as opposed to silly and discouraging. Yet, history records that the Greeks, subsequently cheered, proceeded to repulse the intruders, saving the development that today respects those equivalent animals by breading, searing and plunging them into one's decision of source. The relatives of those chickens may well think, in the event that they were able to do such significant idea, that their old progenitors have a great deal to respond in due order regarding. Chicken is the universal food of our time, crossing various social limits easily. With its gentle taste and uniform surface, chicken presents an intriguingly fresh start for the flavor range of practically any cooking. An age of Britons is transitioning in the conviction that chicken tikka masala is the public dish, and exactly the same thing is going on in China with Kentucky Fried Chicken. Long after, when most families had a couple of hens going around the yard that could be gotten and transformed into supper, chicken remaining parts a nostalgic, suggestive dish for most Americans. At the point when creator Jack Canfield was searching for an illustration for mental solace, he didn't call it shellfish chowder for the soul. How did the chicken accomplish such social and culinary predominance? It is even more amazing considering the conviction by numerous archaeologists that chickens were first tamed not for eating but rather for cockfighting. Until the approach of enormous scope mechanical creation in the 20th century, the financial and wholesome commitment of chickens was humble. In Guns, Germs, and Steel, Jared Diamond recorded chickens among the little homegrown warm-blooded animals and homegrown birds and creepy crawlies that have been valuable to humankind, however not at all like the pony or the bull did pretty much nothing, outside of legends, to change the course of history. Regardless, the chicken has roused commitments to culture, workmanship, cooking, science and religion throughout the long term. Chickens were, and still are, a hallowed creature in certain societies. The colossal and ever-careful hen was an overall image of nurturance and richness. Eggs hung in Egyptian sanctuaries to guarantee a plentiful stream flood. The hearty chicken, aka cockerel, was a general signifier of virility. Yet in addition, in the antiquated Persian confidence of Zoroastrianism, a benevolent soul that crowed at sunrise to proclaim a defining moment in the grandiose battle among obscurity and light. For the Romans, the chicken's executioner application was fortune-telling, particularly during wartime. Chickens went with Roman militaries, and their conduct was deliberately seen before fight. A decent craving implied triumph was likely. As per the compositions of Cicero, when one unexpected of birds wouldn't eat before an ocean fight in 249 BC, an irate emissary tossed them over the edge. History records that he was crushed. Yet, one significant strict practice, amusingly, the one that led to matzo ball soup and the Sunday chicken supper, neglected to pervade chickens with much strict importance. The Old Testament entries concerning custom penance uncover an unmistakable inclination with respect to Yahweh for red meat over poultry. In Leviticus chapter 5 verse 7, a blame contribution of 2 turtle doves or pigeons is adequate if the heathen being referred to can't bear the cost of a sheep, yet in no case does the Lord demand a chicken. Matthew chapter 23 verse 37 contains a section where Jesus compares his consideration for individuals of Jerusalem to a hen really focusing on her brood. This picture, had it gotten on, might have totally changed the course of Christian iconography, which has been ruled rather by portrayals of the Good Shepherd. The chicken assumes a little however essential part in the Gospels in assisting with satisfying the prediction that Peter would deny Jesus before the chicken crows. In the 10th century, Pope Nicholas I proclaimed that a figure of a chicken ought to be put on each congregation as a token of the occurrence, which is the reason numerous holy places actually have cockerel-molded climate vanes. There is no ramifications that the chicken did anything other than mark the section of the hours, yet even this used relationship with double-crossing presumably didn't propel the reason for the chicken in Western culture. In contemporary American use, the relationship of chicken with weakness, masochist uneasiness, the sky is falling, and ineffective frenzy, going around like a chicken without a head. The truth of the matter is that the male of the species can be a significant savage creature, particularly when reproduced and prepared for battling. Nature outfitted the chicken with a hard leg prod. People have enhanced that highlight with a munitions stockpile of metal spikes and little blades lashed to the bird's leg. Cockfighting is illicit in the United States. Louisiana was the last state to boycott it, in 2008, and by and large saw by Americans as uncaring. In any case, in the pieces of the reality where it is as yet polished, legitimately or illicitly, it has cases to being the world's most established consistent game. Creative portrayals of chicken warriors are dissipated all through the antiquated world. For example, in a 1st century AD mosaic decorating a house in Pompeii. The old Greek city of Pergamum set up a cockfighting amphitheater to instruct boldness to people in the future of troopers. The tamed chicken has a lineage as convoluted as the Tudors, extending back 7,000 to 10,000 years and including, as per late examination, at any rate 2 wild begetters and perhaps more than one occasion of introductory taming. The soonest fossil bones distinguished as perhaps having a place with chickens show up in destinations from northeastern China dating to around 5400 BC, yet the bird's wild precursors never lived in those cool, dry fields. So in the event that they truly are chicken bones, they probably come from elsewhere, no doubt Southeast Asia. The chicken's wild begetter is the red jungle fowl, Gallus, as indicated by a hypothesis progressed by Charles Darwin and as of late affirmed by DNA examination. The bird's similarity to current chickens is shown in the male's red wattles and brush, the spike he uses to battle, and his rooster a doodle-doo mating call. The dun-shaded females brood eggs and clack very much like farm chickens. In its environment, which extends from northeastern India to the Philippines, G. gallus peruses on the woods floor for creepy crawlies, seeds and organic product, and flies up to settle in the trees around evening time. That is probably, however, much flying that it can deal with, a characteristic that had clear appeal to people trying to catch and raise it. This would later assistance charm the chicken to Africans, whose local guinea fowls had an irritating propensity for taking off into the woods when the soul moved them. Be that as it may, G. gallus isn't the sole begetter of the advanced chicken. Researchers have recognized 3 firmly related species that may have reared with the red jungle fowl. Definitely how much hereditary material these different birds added to the DNA of trained chickens stays a matter of guess. Late examination proposes that cutting-edge chickens acquired in any event one characteristic, their yellow skin, from the dark jungle fowl of southern India. Did a trained type of G. gallus spread at first from Southeast Asia, venturing out one or the other north to China or southwest to India? Or then again were there 2 separate heartlands of taming, antiquated India and Southeast Asia? Either situation is conceivable, yet testing all the more profoundly into chicken sources is upset by an uncertain DNA trail. Since trained and wild birds blended over the long run, it's truly hard to pinpoint, says Michael Zodi, a computational scientist who examines hereditary qualities at the Broad Institute of Harvard and MIT. The chicken's genuine star turn came in 2004, when a global group of geneticists created a total guide of the chicken genome. The chicken was the initially tamed creature, the main bird, and subsequently, the primary relative of the dinosaurs, consequently regarded. The genome map gave a superb chance to concentrate how centuries of training can change an animal groups. In an undertaking drove by Sweden's Uppsala University, Zodi and his associates have been investigating the contrasts between the red jungle fowl and its farm relatives, including layers, breeds raised to deliver enormous measures of eggs, and ovens, breeds that are stout and substantial. The scientists discovered significant changes in a quality-assigned TBC1D1, which directs glucose digestion. In the human genome, changes in this quality have been related with weight, yet it's a positive attribute in an animal bound for the supper table. Another change that came about because of particular rearing is in the TSHR, thyroid invigorating chemical receptor, quality. In wild creatures, this quality directions propagation with day length, limiting rearing to explicit seasons. The transformation incapacitating this quality empowers chickens to raise and lay eggs the entire year. Whenever chickens were tamed, social contacts, exchange, movement and regional triumph brought about their presentation and renewed introduction to various areas all throughout the planet more than a few thousand years. Albeit uncertain, proof proposes that ground zero for the birds toward the west spread may have been the Indus Valley, where the city conditions of the Harappan development carried on an exuberant exchange with the Middle East over 4,000 years prior. Archaeologists have recuperated chicken bones from Lothal, when an incredible port on the west shoreline of India, raising the likelihood that the birds might have been conveyed across to the Arabian Peninsula as freight or arrangements. By 2000 BC, cuneiform tablets from Mesopotamia allude to the bird of Meluha, the probably place name for the Indus Valley. That could conceivably have been a chicken. Professor Piotr Steinkeller, an expert in antiquated Near Eastern writings at Harvard, says that it was absolutely some outlandish bird that was obscure to Mesopotamia. He accepts that references to the regal bird of Meluha, an expression that appears in messages 3 centuries later, undoubtedly allude to the chicken. Chickens showed up in Egypt somewhere in the range of 250 years after the fact, as battling birds and increments to outlandish zoological gardens. Imaginative portrayals of the bird decorated regal burial places. However, it would be an additional 1,000 years before the bird turned into a famous product among normal Egyptians. It was in that period that Egyptians dominated the procedure of fake hatching, which liberated hens to put their opportunity to all the more likely use by laying more eggs. This was no simple matter. Most chicken eggs will bring forth in 3 weeks, yet just if the temperature is kept consistent at around 99 to 105 degrees Fahrenheit and the overall mugginess remains nearby to 55%, expanding over the most recent couple of long periods of hatching. The eggs should likewise be gone 3 to 5 times each day, in case actual deformations result. The Egyptians developed immense hatching buildings comprised of many stoves. Each broiler was an enormous chamber, which was associated with a progression of passageways and vents that permitted chaperones to manage the warmth from flames energized by straw and camel waste. The egg chaperones stayed quiet about their techniques from outcasts for quite a long time. Around the Mediterranean, archaeological burrows have uncovered chicken bones from around 800 BC. Chickens were a delicacy among the Romans, whose culinary developments incorporated the omelette and the act of stuffing birds for cooking, in spite of the fact that their plans tended more toward crushed chicken cerebrums than bread morsels. Ranchers started creating strategies to stuff the birds. Some pre-owned wheat bread absorbed wine, while others depended on a combination of cumin seeds, grain and reptile fat. At a certain point, the specialists banned these practices. Out of worry about moral rot and the quest for unreasonable extravagance in the Roman Republic, a law in 161 BC restricted chicken utilization to 1 for each feast, probably for the entire table, not per individual, and just if the bird had not been overloaded. The pragmatic Roman cooks before long found that mutilating chickens made them swell all alone, and hence was conceived the animal we know as the capon. However, the chicken's status in Europe seems to have lessened with the breakdown of Rome. Everything goes downhill, says Kevin MacDonald, a teacher of antiquarianism at University College in London. In the post-Roman time frame, the size of chickens got back to what it was during the Iron Age, over 1,000 years sooner. He estimates that the enormous, coordinated ranches of Roman occasions, which were appropriate to taking care of various chickens and shielding them from hunters, to a great extent disappeared. As the hundreds of years passed by, hardier fowls, for example, geese and partridge started to enhance Middle Age tables. Europeans showing up in North America tracked down a landmass abounding with local turkeys and ducks for the culling and eating. A few archaeologists accept that chickens were first acquainted with the New World by Polynesians who arrived at the Pacific bank of South America a century or so before the journeys of Columbus. Well into the 20th century, chickens, albeit esteemed, especially as a wellspring of eggs, assumed a moderately minor part in the American eating regimen and economy. Long after dairy cattle and pigs had entered the mechanical time of unified, automated slaughterhouses, chicken creation was still generally an easygoing, neighborhood undertaking. The advancement that made the present 250,000 bird ranches potential was the fortress of feed with anti-infection agents and nutrients, which permitted chickens to be raised inside. Like most animals, chickens need daylight to blend nutrient D all alone. Thus up through the primary many years of the 20th century, they commonly went through their days meandering around the farm, pecking for food. Presently they could be shielded from climate and hunters and took care of a controlled eating routine in a climate intended to introduce the base of interruptions from the fundamental business of eating. Plant cultivating addresses the chicken's last advance in its change into a protein-delivering item. Hens are stuffed so firmly into wire confines, not exactly a large portion of a square foot for each bird, that they can't spread their wings. Upwards of 20,000 to 30,000 ovens are packed together in austere structures. The outcome has been a huge public investigation in supply-side gastro-financial matters. Factory ranchers turning out expanding measures of chicken have called forward an expanding request. By the mid-1990s, chicken had outperformed hamburger as Americans' most well-known meat, estimated by utilization, that is, not assessments of public sentiment, with yearly utilization running at around 9 billion birds, or 80 pounds for each capita, not including the breeding. Current chickens are machine gear pieces in a framework intended to change over grain into protein with amazing productivity. It takes under 2 pounds of feed to deliver 1 pound of chicken, live weight, not exactly a large portion of the feed-weight proportion in 1945. By examination, around 7 pounds of feed are needed to create a pound of meat, while multiple pounds are expected to yield a pound of pork. Gary Balducci, a third-age poultry rancher in Edgecombe, Maine, can transform a day-old chick into a 5-pound oven in about a month and a half, a fraction of the time it took his granddad. What's more, particular rearing has made the ovens so meek that regardless of whether chickens are offered admittance to outside space, a promoting gadget that qualifies the subsequent meat to be sold as unfenced, they lean toward hanging out at the automated box, anticipating the following conveyance of feed. Chickens used to be incredible programs, says Balducci, however our own can't do that. All they need to do now is eat. It is difficult to recall that these overflowing, clacking, utilizing and pooing crowds anticipating their chance in the fryer are similar creatures adored in numerous pieces of the Old World for their battling ability and accepted by the Romans to be in direct correspondence with fate. A chicken reared for the requests of American grocery store customers probably has lost whatever supernatural powers the variety once had. Western guide laborers found this in Mali during a bombed endeavor to supplant the gaunt local birds with imported Rhode Island Reds. As per custom, the locals divine the future by slitting the jugular of a hen and afterward holding on to find in which heading the withering bird falls. Left or right demonstrates a good reaction to the seer's inquiry. Straightforward signifies no. But the Rhode Island Red, weighted somewhere around its excessively enormous bosom, consistently fell straight forward, connoting nothing significant aside from the advent of supper. Santeria, the religion that experienced childhood in Cuba with components acquired from Catholicism, local Carib culture and the Yoruba religion of West Africa, customarily forfeits chickens, just as test subjects, goats, sheep, turtles and different creatures. Enthusiasts of Santeria were the applicants in a 1993 First Amendment case, in which the Supreme Court consistently upset neighborhood mandates prohibiting creature penance. The case pitted a Santeria church, Lukumi Babaluai, and its minister, Ernesto Pichado, against the city of Hialeah, Florida. Numerous standard strict and social liberties bunches agreed with the congregation, while basic entitlements defenders favored the city. Albeit the act of creature penance may appear to be despicable to a few, Justice Anthony Kennedy wrote in The Choice, strict convictions need not be worthy, coherent, steady or fathomable to others to justify First Amendment security. Chickens make wonderful pets, as breeders will tell you, especially if they think they could interest you in buying some chicks. They are as colorful as tropical fish but more affectionate, as cute as guinea pigs but better tasting, and, according to Jennifer Hawkey, who raises chickens near Rhinebeck, New York, far better mouses than our cats. What characteristics do chicken owners value most? To Barbara Gardiner Whitaker, who raises 5 breeds of chickens in upstate New York, a leading criterion is egg color, the deep chocolate brown eggs of her Welsumers, the jade green of the Amaraucana, the speckled olive of Amaraucana hens after a Welsummer rooster got loose and created an inadvertent cross. Also, hardiness, cuteness and a willingness to brood. To sit on a nest full of fertilized eggs until they hatch, contributing their own labor to the farm economy. The eggs don't even have to be their own, as necessity dictates, Whitaker will substitute eggs laid by another hen, or even a duck. Unfortunately, these qualities are sometimes in conflict. She raises a breed called Silkies, with good looks to spare, bearing luxuriant feathers of an exceptional fluffiness. However, they also have blue skin and dark blue, almost black, meat and bones, which means they're not the first thing you think of when company's coming for dinner. 2 years ago, Whitaker reluctantly sampled 2 silky roosters. Of course, it was utterly delicious and tender, but blue-gray meat, she recalls. And the bones really are freakish looking. So now if I can bring myself to use one for food, I generally use it in a dish with color, a nice coq au vin or something with tomatoes and thyme. This is a prejudice not shared by some Asian cultures, which prize silkies for food and medicinal purposes. Whitaker was surprised to see whole frozen silkies, which each weigh only about £1.5 pounds, selling for more than $10 in her local Asian market. Exotic and heritage breeds of chicken go for considerable sums of money, as much as $399 for a single-day-old chick, as listed on the website of Greenfire Farms, where the names of the breeds are almost as beautiful as the birds themselves: the cream leg bar, with its sky blue eggs, the iridescent, flamboyantly tailed and wattled Sulmatla, the Jubilee Orpingtons in speckled brown and white, like a hillside on which the springtime sun has begun to melt the winter snow. The silver Sussex, according to the website, looks like a bird designed by Jackson Pollock during his black and silver period. An advantage of many heritage breeds, an advantage for the chickens, that is that they spread their egg-laying careers over several years, unlike commercial varieties, bred for production, that are washed up in half that time. And, for some chickens, the day comes when they are no longer wanted. That's when the man of the house marches into the yard, puts the bird in the back seat and drives to Whitaker's farm, leaving the chicken with her, whimpering that he just can't bring himself to do what has to be done. As he walks away, Whitaker sometimes says to herself, "I'm going to process 8 birds today, mister. What's wrong with you?" Let us now praise chicken in all its extra crispy glory. Chicken, the mascot of globalization, the universal symbol of middle-brow culinary aspiration. Chicken that has infiltrated the Caesar salad and made inroads on turkey in the club sandwich, that lurks under a blanket of pesto alongside a tangle of spaghetti and glistens with teriyaki sauce. Chicken that, marinated in yogurt and spices, grilled on a skewer and then set afloat in a mild, curry-flavored gravy, has become a true British national dish, on no less authority than former Foreign Secretary Robin Cook. In a 2001 address that has gone down in history as the Chicken Tikka Masala speech, he chose that cuisine to symbolize his nation's commitment to multiculturalism. The most frequently served dish in British restaurants, Cook said, was a perfect illustration of the way Britain absorbs and adapts external influences. Chicken tikka is an Indian dish. The masala sauce was added to satisfy the desire of British people to have their meat served in gravy. The great event took place in the early 1970s in an Indian restaurant in Glasgow, according to a Scottish MP who urged the European Union to grant the dish a protected designation of origin. This did not sit well with chefs in New Delhi, one of whom described chicken tikka masala as an authentic Mughlai recipe prepared by our forefathers who were royal chefs in the Mughal period, which covered roughly the 16th through 18th centuries. If there's an American counterpart to the tikka masala story, it might be General Cho's chicken, which the New York Times has described as the most famous Hainanese dish in the world. That might come as news to chefs in Hunan, who apparently had never heard of it until the opening of China to the West in recent decades. The man generally credited with the idea of putting deep-fried chicken pieces in a hot chili sauce was the Hunan-born chef Peng Chang Kue, who fled to Taiwan after the Communist Revolution in 1949. He named the dish for a 19th-century military commander who led the suppression of the Taiping Rebellion, a largely forgotten conflict that claimed upwards of 20 million lives. Peng moved to New York in 1973 to open a restaurant that became a favorite of diplomats and began cooking his signature dish. Over the years it has evolved in response to American tastes to become sweeter, and in a kind of reverse cultural migration has now been adopted as a traditional dish by chefs and food writers in Hunan. But increasingly, as foreign observers have noticed, chicken, to the Chinese, at least those who live in the cities, means what's served at KFC. Since the first drumstick was dipped into a fryer in Beijing in 1987, the chain has opened more than 3,000 branches around the country, and is now more profitable in China than in the United States. Numerous reasons have been advanced for this success, from the cleanliness of the restrooms to the alleged resemblance of Colonel Sanders to Confucius, but it apparently does not reflect a newfound Chinese appetite for the cuisine of the American Mid-South. You can find bone-in fried chicken there, notes Mary Shellman, a Kentucky native and the head of the agribusiness program at Harvard Business School. But it's always dark meat, which the Chinese prefer, and it's one menu item out of around 30, and it's not the most popular. The chain has thrived by offering the Chinese customers food they were already familiar with, including, depending on the region, noodles, rice and dumplings, along with chicken wraps, chicken patties and chicken wings, which are so popular, Shellman says, that the company periodically has to deny rumors it has a farm somewhere that raises 6-winged chickens. If it did, you could be sure, chicken hobbyists would be clamoring to buy them for their flocks, fancy restaurants would add them to their menus and food bloggers would be debating whether the first, second or third pair made the best buffalo wings. The globe-spanning chicken is an epic story of evolutionary, agricultural and culinary success, outnumbering human beings on the planet by nearly 3 to 1. Yes, we get to eat them, but we also feed them. And they provide, along with omelettes, casseroles, fricassees, McNuggets and chicken liver pâté, an answer to the question that every 6-year-old boy, visiting a natural history museum for the first time, has asked his parents, what did a dinosaur taste like? It tasted like chicken. Thank you for watching. Bye now.
If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like and subscribe to Life is Often if you haven't already. Click the bell icon to stay updated on all our latest content.